Whoa.
Whoa. I guess we're live. We're live. Welcome in. Don't know what's happening. We're having some tough technical difficulties here, but welcome in. So we're here for buy sell today. We're loading in. We got some players we're going to talk about. FF Mediators, man. Are you guys ready to get started? Buy sell today.
Let's do it.
Loading in. We got some players we're going to talk about.
Man, can we have a rougher start than this? How about that?
How about that? Well, welcome in, whoever's here.
I do think the start to this is no more rough than Thunder's finish the other night.
That's true. The Thunder had a really rough time. We're going to bounce back tonight, I believe. Thunder up, baby. Thunder in 5. Well, we're going to do some buy-sell today. We're going to talk some Dynasty players. So if you're here, be sure to let us know in the chat. Give the like the stream, comment. If you got any trade questions, you're on the clock. Let us know. We are happy to answer those. We're going to talk about 6 different players, let you know whether we're buying, whether we're selling, maybe what the prices are, kind of give you the status of what's going on with these players. But let's just get started, guys. The biggest news today is George Pickens finds his way on the move to the Dallas Cowboys. Big-time player, can make big plays, but hasn't necessarily replicated that on the field thus far. So far his fantasy finishes have been 42, 26, and 37. This past season he had 900 yards with only 3 touchdowns. Biggest question we have, guys, is George Pickens a buy or is he a sell heading to the Dallas Cowboys? I'm going to start with you, Coach. What's your thoughts on George Pickens, and what are you doing with him in Dynasty?
I'll be honest, I don't think there's a better time to sell George Pickens than right now. Like, this is prime time. And it's even better that he went to the Dallas Cowboys, man. Every league you're in has some kind of Dallas Cowboy fan, and they're dying to buy some George Pickens right now. I just think the guy's very just okay, average. I don't think he's a lead or anything like that. The question will be, will he commit himself to playing hard and fighting through any adversity there in Dallas, especially when CeeDee Lamb is wide receiver 1. How does he handle that? Things like that are questions. But there's no doubt in my mind that you'll have a Dallas Cowboy owner somewhere in your league that wants to get George Pickens on his team right now.
Yeah, I mean, just the name capital, the value there, moving to the Dallas Cowboys, you mentioned it. A lot of people are going to be really excited about that. I was texting with you today, Coach, and with Pete and Hoff, and I let you know that I went and asked all my Dallas Cowboy friends, what's your thoughts on this? Everyone seems to believe that this is a top wide receiver duo in the entire league overall, above Chase and Higgins. I had multiple people tell me that. That's crazy to me. So I would be capitalizing on that as well. I think you can move him, and now's the time. Like Coach said, you can get some pretty extreme value for George Pickens. But Tyler, what are you doing with Pickens?
Yeah, I would sell him too. Like Coach said, this is the perfect time. Going to the Cowboys, like Coach said, you've got one of those at least in every league. And so I think his value is probably down because joining the Steelers and people kind of looked at him, this value before now. But with him going to the Cowboys, I think it's probably an uptick in value, and I think you should capitalize on it because we were already having people, clamoring for the wide receiver 2 as the Cowboys. And if you've got a George Pickens fan who's a Cowboys fan as well, go trade, whatever you can for him, or get back for him, I guess I should say. So I would sell him.
Well, I don't really have a lot of shares of George Pickens, honestly. But something today told me a lot about his value because I was all of a sudden receiving multiple trade requests for Dak Prescott. Like, people were trying to get Dak Prescott today in the leagues that I own him in, and it makes me just wonder. I'm sure they're trying to do the same for George Pickens right now. I mean, I just think it's prime time to trade him if you can.
Yeah, I think Dak's probably the biggest winner of this move overall. I mean, he gets another weapon that he gets to use outside of CeeDee Lamb, maybe some pressure taken off there. We'll see what happens with Ferguson as we move forward. But for the most part, I'm not really sure that I'm going to expect Pickens to suddenly become everything that everyone wants him to be. I mean, if you go back and look at his production, it's just simply not there. He's makes fantastic catches, contested catches, but at the end of the day, he hasn't necessarily been the guy to stretch the field and, get open at all times of the game. I mean, he's never had more than 65 catches in a year, and he's only missed 3 games in his entire career. So when you really look at that, how much value is he adding? He's stable production, but I wouldn't say he's elite production.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. He does have some great catches, like you say. I mean, he does those things that are highlight reel plays, but he doesn't get tons of separation. That's the major issue, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the league that we're all in together, last year he was the wide receiver 42. That's where he finished. So if you get somebody that thinks he's going to be a top 24 wide receiver, like a wide receiver 2 or something, and they want to pay that price, by all means, go right ahead for it. Because like you guys have brought up, it's not, he's great at contested catches, that he can make some flashy catches, but he's just not going to be the target hog.
Yeah, I mean, 103 targets last year, 106 the year before. I think what everyone would say is, well, the offense in Pittsburgh hasn't necessarily been anything to write home about. And that's true. But as it stands right now in Dallas, I think, again, the biggest benefactor of Pickens being moved is going to be Dak Prescott. It's not going to be necessarily that suddenly, Pickens is going to be a top 12 wide receiver. I think that dream is far and away not happening. It's just not come to fruition at any point in time in Pickens' career thus far. So I'm not going to expect that it's suddenly going to change now that he's in Dallas.
Well, yeah, and he does help the room, right? He does help the Cowboys as a whole. I mean, he's definitely better than all the other guys that they had as options for wide receiver 2. So I mean, there is that for the offense in Dallas, but so that could potentially help Dak Prescott somewhat, assuming he will actually fall through and play hard the entire season and have a good attitude and all those things. There's more potential there than Kevontae Turpin, I would imagine.
Or Cooks either.
Or Mingo.
Yeah, I'm totally with you guys, but I think we're ready to move on to our next player. If you're here, be sure to throw some comments in there. Let us know you're here. If you got a question on a player, let us know. We're happy to come back to that. If you're on the clock, let us know who's available. We'll help you make your pick. We are happy to talk. We're just doing some buy sells right now. But let's jump to our next player, guys, and let's talk about Drake London. Suddenly ascended into that role that I think coach believed he could be the entire time. Last year finished as wide receiver 5, 158 targets with 100 receptions. He had almost 1,300 yards and 9 touchdowns. Now we see Michael Penix take over this offense. The question is are you buying? Are you selling? Coach, I think I know your answer. We'll start with you because this is your guy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 100% a buy on Drake London. I mean, he was a top 5 wide receiver in PPR last year and half PPR for that matter. He has a great rapport with Michael Penix, as you said. He's really the only wide receiver in Atlanta. I mean, we can't talk about like Mooney and all these guys like they're great weapons. They're just not. London's far superior to all those guys. Kyle Pitts is not even really a threat for targets there, in my opinion. London's going to get peppered with targets from Penix. The coach really has built the offense now around Drake London when it comes to throwing the football, especially. Like they're going to get him the ball. I think they saw the difference that it made down the stretch last year for them in the last couple of games offensively. I feel really good about Drake London moving forward.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I think it's wheels up in Atlanta. I mean, you see what Penix can do, and I really liked the relationship that I saw kind of build at the end of the season this past year. And I think it can go pretty high. I mean, London is a guy that I think can stretch the field. He can make contested catches, but he can also make plays after the catch. He's sneaky athletic. A lot of people are comparing Tet to him. He's better than Tet McMillan. I just want to get that out there. I think that comp is just overused, simply, in my opinion. But Tyler, what are you doing with Drake London? Are you buying or are you selling?
So I'm actually going to go against the grain here. I would sell at this point. I think you probably saw his ceiling here with the wide receiver 5 season. Last year, out of the 17 games they played because of the bye, he had 5 weeks where he was above the wide receiver 15. So I mean, yeah, sure, like he can be consistent and get you 9 to 12 points a whole lot. And sure, maybe he steps up in the offense with Michael Penix, but although we can't say that Mooney and those guys are elite targets, they do take targets away from him regardless. If Kyle Pitts gets any more involved than he has been, which there's been coach speak about that already this offseason. Now, whether or not that comes to fruition is a whole nother thing. But, if he gets more involved, if they involve Bijan more in the pass game, if Mooney continues to take up targets or whoever, it doesn't matter at this point. I think you could easily move back, go get like a JSN type or somebody like Travis Hunter. I would take Travis Hunter right now over Drake London. That's just me though. So I would sell. I would see what you can get out of him, and just see where his value lies for people in your league.
Real quick, Coach, before you go, I just want to say that Penix only had 3 games. He played week 16, 17, and 18. He had a small sample against Denver in week 11. I'm not going to count that. He only threw the ball 4 times. But in those 3 games, he had 101 pass attempts. So averaging almost 31 a game. I think what we can do is really see that number rise up higher. And I think that's not necessarily going to I don't think that's necessarily going to result in Drake London having lower targets. I mean, he had 158 last year. The year before that, 110. The year before that, 117. Mooney had 106 last year. Pitts had 74. They didn't add another weapon on the outside. So I don't see any reason for London's targets to necessarily go down at all. I think it's going to stay the same. And if you told me it got higher, I wouldn't say that's crazy at all. I really think that London has the ability to be the alpha of this offense. It runs through him in the passing game. Obviously, they have Bijan, who's great on the ground, but London is fantastic, man. He's only 23. He is so young. But Coach, you want to jump in here a little bit more before I show something to you guys?
Well, I do think Atlanta maybe is not as high flying when it comes to throwing the ball this coming season, because I do look for them to be a little better defensively. Some of that was a product down the stretch of them being horrific on defense. I do expect them to be a little bit better defensively, which I think is going to make their possessions even more important as it goes, which is going to lead to even more targets for their very best player when possessions mean a little bit more throughout the course of the game. So I just think Drake London's far and away their best wide receiver. And it's clear it's not even close, in my opinion. And that's why he's going to continue to get the ball over and over.
Yeah. We got a couple questions in the chat. We will hit those in just a second. So Juan, bear with us. Pete, bear with us. But I do want to show you guys just one thing really quick. Let me get it pulled up here. Okay. This week over on Dynasty Data Lab, here's a recent trade that I think we need to shout out. And that's going to be, we have right here, Drake London in a 2026 second was traded for George Pickens in a 2026 first. Now, obviously, we don't know the specifics of these teams, whether these are early or late firsts. But if you're telling me you can attach a first to George Pickens and get London and a second, I would absolutely do that. Coach, I imagine you'd be the same way.
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely. Tyler would probably doing that deal too.
Yeah, I would do that too. Easy.
Yeah, I mean, I think like here's one, Keon Coleman in a first. Like depending on where this first is, I would much rather have London. Like that's some stable production you're getting. Here's another one, Shakir a second, another second, and a first in 2026. Like give me London. Like these are values right now, and I think there's a world where you should go check in on the manager and maybe see what they're thinking. Is the Pitts news really going to scare people off again? I think that's crazy, but if it's the case, then we should be buying, man.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I mean, it's a no-brainer in my opinion.
I mean, if you can get him for those prices, I mean, I think that's a fair buy. Like, I'm not saying I don't want any shares of Drake London. Don't get me wrong when I say that. My thing is I feel like his value is much higher than that. I feel like it's starting to creep up. People are, pushing him up boards, and he's in the, top 10 wide receivers in Dynasty. If he keeps going that way, I would rather just take somebody in the 11 to 15 range and net an extra first or something back. But if you're getting him for that, I mean, why not go for it?
That's also great data to think about selling George Pickens also, I mean, goodness gracious.
Great point. We just talked about Pickens. So, well, let's hit these questions, guys. Pete asked, he offered someone Brock Purdy for Dak in the 112. Is that a fair offer? I knew
that was coming.
Coach,
no,
you got a comment?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I know the guy he offered that to. He happens to be right here. No, it's not a fair offer. Not at all. I just think Purdy's going to have to come with something else. I mean, especially when you think about 3-year windows. I mean, Dak's got 3 more years in his career that I feel okay about. You know what I mean? And then who knows what could be available at 112 this time of year from now. So I would have to have a little something attached to Brock Purdy, whether it's a third or something. I got to have a little something to even it out there, in my opinion.
Well, there you go, Pete. Now you know what to send. Tyler, any comments on that trade? I think I'm kind of with Coach. I'd want something else. I mean, I get it, though. Like, I see both sides, but I'm with Coach of Dak is kind of in that 3-year compete window. You do get called out here, Coach. No counter?
Mm-hmm. No, not yet. Maybe, not yet.
Tyler,
I'm a little bit worried about the San Francisco offense. Maybe I shouldn't be, but I'm a little bit concerned. I do think that if Dak stays healthy, Dak is a really good player. That his health is more of my concern as somebody that has a couple shares of Dak.
I actually don't think I have any shares of Dak. Now think about it. But Tyler, any thoughts?
I think if anything, I think probably with trending news and stuff like that, like obviously Pickens, we said raises Dak's value. I think if anything, you could probably put the 112 on the other side and it would be more enticing. Now I know that's not.
Now we're talking.
I know it's not. I know it's not like that easy, but because it's between you two. But the thing about it is like I do have concerns about the 49ers offense, and it actually kind of surprised me to have Coach say that because he's like the biggest Ricky Pearsall fan I know. And so when you have Ayuk and then you get Pearsall and now you lose Debo, right? Yeah, sure, you have Kittle, but we don't know what McCaffrey's going to do. We have no idea what this offense is going to look like. We're hoping that Ayuk comes back to form and that Pearsall steps up. But if he doesn't, then you're throwing it to George Kittle. And we've seen plenty of offenses that have went from an elite level down to a mediocre level or like an average level just because their weapons get hurt. So for me, I would take Dak at this point and I'd ride that one out.
I do think Purdy's a good player. It's the 112 for me. Like it's just scary to me.
It's That's Matthew Gold. It's Ibuka maybe. Caleb Johnson. Like you got to put a name to it. 112 oftentimes I feel I'm with Coach where I'm finding myself trading out, either trading up or trading back just because I like the names better there. But let's get to Juan's question, guys. He says, did I overpay for Ladd by sending my expected 2026 first and a late 2026 first plus Lloyd? So you have 2 firsts and Lloyd for Ladd. I mean, we're about to talk about Ladd, so we can kind of just roll that into it. I think just on the grand scheme of things, as far as it goes for a price, that's probably pretty close. I would say I'd want 2 firsts if I was going to move Ladd. And I'd want one to be at least something that could possibly have value, like a middle first. I'd like to take those risks. What about you guys? Are you different there?
I'm not. I would have to have that. I would have to have that, and it would depend on the makeup of my team. You know what I mean? I'm not really trading. I'm not really trading Ladd McConkey right now for 26 first until I'm maybe a couple weeks into the season and I see the status on my team, but it would be awful early for me to be trading Ladd away for 2 first-round picks. I don't even have a clue who that could end up being. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tyler,
I mean, I think 2 firsts, like you said, if I was going to move Ladd, I would take the 226 first in terms of like that's what it would take for me to even consider it. Coach hit the nail on the head. We don't know who those picks are going to be. So I'd hold on to Ladd here. I don't think it's necessarily an overpay at all. I mean, you're saying Lloyd third, so 2 firsts and a third. Is that? It's fair value for Ladd,
especially he's how young Ladd is.
Yeah,
Ladd's
he's
young,
buying
man.
Ladd.
Yeah, good for him.
Oh, I know.
I don't
think
it's an overpay.
Well, let's just jump into our next buy sell. I think it's going to fit pretty well. Juan, Troy, we'll come back to your question as soon as we finish this segment, so stay with us. But let's talk about the Chargers wide receiver room. We've got Ladd McConkey, who we're discussing right now, and then the addition of Trey Harris out of Ole Miss kind of revamps this target competition for Ladd, but I'm not necessarily scared of that. So my question to you guys is, are we buying or are we selling the wide receiver duo? For me, I'm absolutely buying. Ladd had a fantastic year one, finished as wide receiver 12, 112 targets, 82 catches, almost 1,150 yards, and he had 7 touchdowns on top of that. Really, really productive. He showed his skill set. He was open in space. And frankly, his competition was next to nothing. I mean, they were dying for some help for him. They go out and get one of my favorite players in the draft process, Trey Harris, and I think that's an absolute perfect pair. We can have Ladd McConkey be in the slot, be the guy that moves around in motion, creates space close to the line of scrimmage. Trey Harris can stretch that field. I'm absolutely buying both of these guys. I don't care that they're going to shark off of each other. I think Justin Herbert needed a second target, and I think he got it in Trey Harris. And I'm really excited to see what this offense can do. I don't know if you guys saw, but Jim Harbaugh said this morning on NFL Network that he woke up at 3 a.m. in the middle of the night and stood up and said, I need to make Justin Herbert a Hall of Famer. And that's what prompted him to say, I'm going to go get Amari Hampton. I'm going to go get Trey Harris. I'm going to invest in this offensive line. So I'm buying the Harbaugh hype. He's a weird character, but I love him. So I'm buying the wide receivers in L.A. Tyler, let's go with you first. What are your thoughts on Ladd and Trey Harris?
Yeah, I mean, I agree wholeheartedly. I was actually going to bring up the Harbaugh fact if you didn't. But you believe everything he says as a coach. This offense, I'm excited to see where Justin Herbert goes. How many times he throws the ball this year? I think you're getting ready to have your Keenan Allen and Mike Williams 2.0. I think you've got the younger version of the two. Ladd being that intermediate short route guy that can just get open, and Trey Harris being the downfield threat. So I enjoy both of these guys. I actually just got my first share of Trey Harris today. I stuck and I picked him because I was super excited, and I wanted him in at least one Dynasty draft. So I got him there, and I'm excited. I think this could actually be a very high-powered offense. There's questions that people have had of if they can even win the AFC West. I think that's a little more difficult of a task, but I think they're up to it, especially if Harbaugh can coach and back up some of the things he's saying. So, Coach, how do you feel about these guys? Are you buying, selling? What's your thoughts?
Man, as Matt would say, I'm wheels up on the entire Chargers offense right now. There is so much going in a positive direction there that it's really exciting. I am a full believer in Harbaugh and what he can do. The dude's just a winner. And Trey Harris, to me, is the perfect complement to Ladd McConkey, like you guys have talked about. Herbert couldn't have a better combination there. I personally think Herbert is underrated, and now he's got more and more weapons to go around him. He had a lethal running game last year, and now he has a complement to Ladd McConkey. If you're a Chargers fan, you got to be ecstatic. And to me, you're trying to buy these two guys anywhere you can get them. Matt has sold me on Trey Harris for 2 months now. And I've drafted him multiple times, and he's made a believer out of me, and I hope we end up being right on that.
Yeah, me too, man. I'm sitting here staring at my roster ship. I have Trey Harris in 25% of my leagues, so I am committed to it. I really expect Trey Harris to be an impactful player year one. I think it's going to be a lot like Ladd McConkey, where he's going to step into that role and just immediately produce. If you go back and watch his tape, he's fantastic. He only played 8 games at Ole Miss, and he was great. He was an all SEC wide receiver. Like Coach said, Harbaugh can flat coach, man. He's good at what he does, and I'm fully bought into this Chargers system and this Chargers offense. So I'm going to go out there and buy. If you're going to pay 2 firsts, like Juan did, to go get Ladd McConkey, and even if you give that small plus of Marshawn Lloyd, I don't care. That's fine. I'm comfortable with that. If I have the 201 or the 202 in a rookie draft, buy Trey Harris. He's falling there repeatedly, and I think his upside is extremely high. He has the ability to be a big-time playmaker in the NFL. He didn't get the first-round draft capital, but that shouldn't scare us off. He was drafted in the second round. The Chargers got their guy, so I absolutely love this Chargers offense going forward, and I'm targeting them. Like Coach said, I'm going to go get whatever piece I can get. Let's not forget they added Najee Harris. They added Amari Hampton. They added a Rondé Gadsden, which has been one of our sleeper tight ends that we've talked about for several months. So I really like what they've done. I like what Justin Herbert's getting. He's probably the biggest benefactor of all of this. But as far as it goes for the two wide receivers in LA, I could not be happier for the pairing. It is a match made in heaven between Trey Harris and Ladd McConkey. Tyler, any final thoughts there?
No, man, I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, like you said, we've brought up Gadsden for months, as being a sleeper, and then along with Trey Harris and now Ladd as well. I think Herbert's ceiling just continues to go up. He's definitely a player that I'm looking into as far as maybe I can acquire a share of him here or there. But it should be interesting. I think this should be a high-powered offense. And they're going to have balance regardless. They'll be able to run the ball as well as throw it, and that will open up the entire field for that offense. So you have offenses where they get a little one-dimensional at times, and I don't think this will be the case for them.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. Well, we've got some stuff here in the chat here, Tyler. So let's try and take care of those. We've got Troy's question who says, "I'm in the middle of the pack team. He's got someone who's trying to buy CD Lamb from him, and he got offered Olave, Judkins, and Jack Besh. I mean, when we're talking about CD Lamb, we're talking about a pretty big player with a big name. So at a bare minimum, I'm going to want something close to 3 firsts when I'm moving a player like this. Now, granted, you're not always going to get offered 3 firsts, and it depends on what your team is. You mentioned your middle of the pack, so you kind of got to figure out what you need and what you want. Now, netting Chris Olave is certainly someone, but I would not say that that is staying within the tier. When I move down from one of these elite guys, I just want to move down one tier. 2 at the max. So if you told me if you were moving from CeeDee Lamb to, say, Drake London, who we talked about earlier, I'm okay with that. I can get behind that because you're going to get a plus. But falling to Chris Olave is going to really impact your wide receiver room. I'm personally not very high on Chris Olave. You get Jack Besh, which is certainly something. But again, we're talking about a second-round rookie pick. So you're getting a late first, a second-round rookie pick, and then Judkins. So another mid-first. Judkins could certainly help your team. He probably could start right away, but I don't necessarily feel great about that trade. So, Tyler, you were here first. So what's your thoughts on this trade? And then we'll come to you, Coach, so you can catch up.
Yeah, I agree with you here. This is where your wide receivers, you really want to stick within that 1 to 2 tier range if you're tiering down. I think you hit the nail on the head. This is probably like a fair offer on Keep Trade Cut, which we like to pick on a lot. This is probably one that they put in the calculator and they said, "Oh, this looks like a fair offer." But whenever you put it on paper, it's really not. I mean, I like Olave. I've been trying to move my shares around. I bought him in one league. I'm trying to sell him in another league. I really like Judkins. I think he has the potential to be a starting running back, especially for the Browns. But the thing is it's still potential at this point. And Jack Besh, we don't know what he's going to be. So I would rather have the surefire production of CeeDee Lamb, who I think is 26. Am I wrong on that? I think that's right. I can tell you. Let's see. Yeah, 26. I thought so.
He just turned 26.
Yeah, so a 26-year-old wide receiver who, we've already talked about how the Cowboys offense is probably more valuable now with George Pickens added. He's no competition. He's probably trying to think that, Lamb's value is taking a hit with Pickens coming in. And at this point, I think no, it's not touched it at all. So for me, I mean, I think that's where he's probably coming from, but this isn't nearly enough for me.
Coach?
Yeah, I'm with you guys on that. Like, if I'm trading Lamb, I got to have proven commodities coming back. And Olave's just there's not enough there for me. While Besh may be good, he also may be completely useless. Like, it's just no way. There's no way I'm doing that and same for Judkins. Like, we like Judkins, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, he also may be backing up Dylan Sampson for all we know. These things are weird sometimes. You never know. So I got to have proven commodities for CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah. Troy tells us good takes. Hey, thanks for the question, man. We appreciate it. Like we said, if you could just get a better receiver than Olave, then I think that changes the deal. Like I said, a Drake London, a Ladd McConkey, a Marvin Harrison, that's where you kind of like start to change the conversation a little bit. But we've got some more updates here. Coach received a counter from Pete in the league that I believe the 3 of us are in. Tyler might not be in that league. I'm not sure. But he sent him what he asked for. And what could happen? He rejected it. So there's your update, folks. Coach rejected his trade. Pete says that now it's in a bad place. We're going to have to repair that trade relationship. Here's my comment to that, Coach, and I'll speak for you. Pete,
Yeah.
I sent you a text that you need to go mediate a deal for me, and I've gotten no response on that. So if you could get to that, please. I'm trying to make some moves. So jump on that.
We can get back to the table on this. We can get back there. But I'm not just handing over the first now. I thought about it. I think Tyler's right. I don't always agree with Tyler, but I agree with Tyler on this, that I should be receiving the first round pick in this deal. It seems like a no-brainer.
Well, since we're talking about no-brainers.
Hey, I see Albert's in the house. What's up, Albert?
Was Albert here?
Yeah.
What's going on, Albert? Thanks for being here. We appreciate you. So be sure to like the stream, guys. We're going to continue on. We've got 3 more buy sells. So if you are here, comment your questions, and we will certainly answer them. Trade on the clock. Just players in general. Does not matter to us. We will answer it. And we will certainly give our takes on how to build good trade relationships, too. Pete's not off to a good start, though. So let's jump to our next player, guys. Let's talk about Kyler Murray. Quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals. It's been an up and down ride so far for Kyler Murray. Big question we have is, can he put it together with Marvin Harrison this upcoming year? Coach, I'm going to kick it to you because he's one of your favorite players coming off a finish at QB 10 this past season. Is Kyler Murray a buy or is he a sell for you?
Well, I tell you, I was in my head, I was like, I'm going to sell. But the more I researched, the more I looked around and thought about it, he's actually a buy for me. I know that shocks you a little bit, probably.
It does.
So this is why. Here's why. I think in general, his hype has quieted quite a bit in fantasy circles for whatever reason. You don't hear a ton of Kyler Murray hype as much as you used to. He's finished QB 10 or better 4 times out of the 6 years that he's played. The 2 times he didn't, he missed 5 or more games in those 2 seasons. So if he's healthy and he finishes the year, you're going to have a top 10 quarterback. I just think now may be a really good time to buy Kyler Murray, just because he's going to produce if he stays healthy. Fantasy circles wise, I may not want him as my NFL quarterback necessarily, but in fantasy world, he's really solid if he stays healthy. And bottom line is he will help your fantasy team.
Yeah, and Trey Bride gets the Trey McBride's there. We've got Marvin Harrison, who's going to be in year 2. We'll see what happens. James Conner's back again. But when you look at his fantasy finishes, Coach, I'm not going to disagree with you too much. Quarterback 10 last year, 26th and 19, but the 3 years before that, 10, 3, and 6. His rushing upside is absolutely incredible. The touchdowns haven't necessarily been there, but he's rushed for over 400 yards every single year except for 1. So he's going to add a ton of stability for you just on the ground alone. And if he figures out some of the passing miscues, I think that's going to help him a lot. But, with that being said, I would be a sell. And the reason why is I just think there's better names that you can get. His name value has kind of dipped a little bit, but I still think that you can move him and go get a guy like CJ Stroud and buy that younger vet who got a ton of weapons on the offense. So I would be looking to move him. It's going to be league dependent because moving quarterbacks is tough. Not everyone's going to necessarily pay market value, especially if you're in a super flex. Don't just move them because I said sell. Make sure you get a good deal. I always want a quarterback back if I'm moving one. So just be careful. But Tyler, are you buying or are you selling Kyler Murray?
Although Coach thinks we don't agree that much, I'm actually going to agree here, and I would buy at this point. I think Coach is right. The hype has died down a lot. I feel like his value has probably dipped down some as well. You mentioned going to get CJ Stroud. I don't even know that you can still do that. I mean, it may be because of the age difference and he had a down year. Sure, maybe you can do it. But Kyler is a stable asset in terms of, like we said, bringing the running game into it. Didn't you say he hasn't rushed for less than 400 yards on the ground? That's a huge. Okay, so then there you go. So, one time out of the 6 years, anytime you get that stability, like we talk about Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson and all these guys that run, and we're clamoring over them, but yet you've got a guy who has only once went under 400 yards, and now we're out on him because they had a bad year and his rapport with Marvin Harrison wasn't where everybody expected it to be right off the bat. I think this is an offense that takes a step forward this year. They signed McBride to a contract extension. I think Marvin Harrison, I think he will rise up boards. He was drafted really high last year. He was drafted like or early second round in redraft leagues, and to start. So, if anything, I think we get to the point where you should buy these guys. I think you could buy all these pieces, whether it be Marv or Kyler or anything. But I'm with Coach here. I would buy Kyler if it's a reasonable price.
My pushback, and I think this is where Coach kind of hits his point, where he's traditionally been a sell on Kyler Murray. This is new.
Yeah.
New territory for him. I'm sure he's a little bit scared. But if you go back and kind of look at his passing production, he's never thrown for 4,000 yards. He's never thrown for 30-plus touchdowns. His highest touchdown total is 26. I just have concerns that it's not necessarily all there for him to push this offense to the next level. I mean, he's had double-digit turnovers in all the years where he's played, like Coach mentioned. The years that he didn't have it is because he didn't play every game. So I think that Kyler Murray is kind of in that same boat as Trevor Lawrence, where he's a good average quarterback that can have you some league-winning weeks. Maybe not Trevor's not necessarily in that same boat just because of the rushing upside. But I just think that finding a way to get him inside the top 12 just seems unrealistic to me. I don't think it's necessarily going to happen. I would be looking to capitalize. I mean, he's almost 28. He hasn't necessarily produced elite fantasy production consistently. Now, granted, the first 2 years were really, really high, but 19, 26, and then 10 last year. I think you can just get a haul for him right now, and I just explore the market. I'm not saying sell him to sell him. Just go look. Be cautious. Coach, any comment?
No, I said it and I mean it. Like, if I was the Cardinals, like, I would love to have a different quarterback probably. But I mean, if he's healthy, he produces. And Tyler mentioned too, like, I just think his value's kind of down right now. This might be a good time to go get him. I do think this is it. Like, the window's about to close. So we talk about 3-year windows. A mobile quarterback that likes to run around a lot. He'll turn 28 before the season starts this year. You got a couple years left there where you can capitalize on Kyler Murray's athleticism. Then Father Time will begin to catch up and things will change somewhat.
Yeah, you bring up a good point there of when does the athleticism kind of fade off. So that's another risk you have. I mean, like I said, 28 here soon. But, Tyler, any final comments on Kyler Murray before we move on?
No, and I think the Father Time, add on, I think that's huge. You play in windows. We like to say play in 2 to 3 year windows. And I think Coach hit it. This is probably his last window to where if you buy him, you're probably starting to get there. We had those same concerns with Dak. Now we're not looking at him as being the runner that he was at one point, but he's also had injuries and stuff like that too. The one thing that will not change with time is the ability to meme about Kyler Murray's size and the toddler running around in the backfield. So if you want, some good laughs on your team, you can always have him as a stable meme for your team, and a great profile picture. The big head, really little body, and the NFL football looks about the size of his chest. So, memes live forever. It's fine. So
there you go. I think that's our final point on Kyler Murray. But we've got Hoff in here, Coach, and he says, "What's Coach drinking? Water, lemonade, or Ensure?" I bet it's Ensure. Got to get that protein shake in.
Well, it's actually unsweet tea, but that's where we're at, right? When you're old and fat, you drink unsweet tea.
Well, I think this is a perfect segue. We're talking about unsweet tea, so let's talk about something that's not necessarily the greatest buy sell, but it's an interesting one that Coach suggested. Mike Gesicki, tight end for the Cincinnati Bengals, finds himself in a situation where not really any competition at the position. Coach, let's start with you since you brought him up. Is Mike Gesicki a buy or is he a sell?
Man, Mike Gesicki is a buy. Now, don't go buying Mike Gesicki and expecting him to be a top 5 tight end. He's not. But if your team needs, I'm just being honest here, but if your team needs depth, it needs a reliable guy to play some tight end, I really like. He caught 65 balls last season. I think he can catch that this year, maybe more. Obviously, there's not a lot of competition, which Matt just said. Like, it's basically just Mike Gesicki in that room for the most part. Eric All's out for the season, who they drafted last year. They didn't. Did they draft one this year? Anyway, it doesn't even matter. So this was odd. So I looked it up. I was thinking about Mike Gesicki, and he graded out as a receiver on Pro Football Focus above guys this past season like Tucker Kraft, Evan Ingram, Pat Fryermuth. Mike Gesicki is a solid depth piece at tight end that you can get for virtually nothing.
And he's really athletic too, so he's going to have the ability to make plays. We haven't seen the touchdowns necessarily translate to the field yet. I mean, he had some early success in Miami, but you mentioned already, Coach, 83 targets last year with 65 receptions. I think there's a world where that role gets better. You mentioned how Eric All's out, Tanner Hudson, Drew Sample, Cole Taylor, all these are names that just don't necessarily amount to anything. And if you're in a tight end premium league where you need a tight end, Tyler and I have a league where we need a tight end right now. I think this is probably the spot where we go look to see if we can get Mike Gesicki, because I think all it's going to take is like a 2026 third. He's going to be dirt cheap.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth the flyer. That's what I'm saying. It's worth the flyer to see what happens.
Yeah, if you get him for a third, I think that's easy value. He did sign a 3-year, $25.5 million contract. That was 2 months ago now. So, I mean, he's going to be on the roster for a while. Sure, he's 29 years old, but he's still in that 2 to 3 year window where unless they go out and draft some, tight end stud or a replacement in the next year or two, I'm not really concerned about it. This offense has proven that they're going to air the ball out. I mean, look, they just re-signed Jamar Chase and T. Higgins both. So I think I forget what the percentage is, but it's an unreal percentage of their cap space for Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase, and that tells me they're going to throw the ball. So if you want, probably lower down the totem pole option in the passing game, but somebody who's going to get consistent targets, I would take Gesicki for a third any day.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is just the opportunity. You're not necessarily going to find a guy with that kind of opportunity for that cheap. He's going to be in a good offense. So it's not even like, a guy like Zach Ertz, who Tyler and I also were trying to get. He's solid, he's stable, but that offense still is going to run the ball. Jaden Daniels is going to be able to do that RPO game and do some read option runs, where Burrow is truly a pocket passer, and he's going to just wheel and deal. And, what's better than a tight end who's just going to be the check down guy? So I think there's a world where Gesicki kind of can be that fringe tight end one. He finishes 14 last year. Could he be 14 again? Yeah, that wouldn't shock me. And if I'm in need of a tight end because I don't have one, there's going to be rosters out there that don't. Go get him. Go check and see if you can find him. Because what if he turns into, maybe a guy like Jonnu Smith, who kind of hit that spot where he got in the right situation and scored a bunch of points and kind of led to something, a bunch of touchdowns. And the Bengals offense is one that I would bet to score a ton of points. So if he can increase the 2 touchdowns to 6 touchdowns, his fantasy upside is going to go up a lot. I bet he would jump way higher than tight end 14 if he had 6 touchdowns.
Yep, absolutely, 100%. And it's just the fact that there's no competition there for him. Like when he was on the field, like Matt, I don't know if Matt mentioned this, but he actually wasn't on the field but half the time last year. And when he was out there, he caught 65 passes in playing half the snaps.
Yeah, I did forget to mention that. We were talking about this off air yesterday, I believe. A majority of his games are below 50% of snaps. He got the extension. The room's got injuries, some guys that haven't produced. So I would expect that to go up. And if he's on the field more, that just gives him more opportunity to be the check down, to be the guy to get some open plays. Like I said, he's athletic enough to make something happen in space and kind of score a sneaky touchdown here or there. So I'm with you, Coach. I like Mike Gesicki as a buy. He's a really cheap ad, someone that I don't think you're going to have to spend a ton to go and get. So good shout out to you for having that. But we've got some questions and comments in here, guys. So let's go hit those. Big Rice says, all these players are buys for the most part when the price is right. Like when their perceived value has dropped below their projected value. I mean, that's certainly true
Yeah.
Go ahead, Coach.
I was going to say that's always the case, right? Like I'm willing to buy every player for the right price. I'm willing to sell every player that I have for the right price. It's just whether you're looking to go buy this guy, right? Versus, or he's on my team, I need to move him now. That's kind of the things we're talking about here. Obviously, if I have a guy and you send me an incredible offer, I'm willing to move anybody for the right offer. But if I'm actively trying to move him, that's the scenarios that we're talking about here.
Yeah. And the other thing too is some of these players you have to make your bet now before, the price is either too high or if you're selling them and the price gets too low. I mean, we've talked to several players in the past couple of weeks where people are saying, "Oh, you're selling it at the bottom or you're buying at the peak." I think it depends on what you think these players can do. I mean, we mentioned the Chargers wide receiver room earlier. I think all three of us believe that both of those guys are pretty dang good. And if you want Trey Harris, like I said, right now he's going at the 202, 203, 204 range. If he hits, I could promise you right now he will be worth much more than that. Think about it. Ladd was in the exact same spot last year. I drafted Ladd at the 202 multiple times. Now he's worth 2 future firsts and more. I mean, we had a question in here earlier where someone paid 2 firsts, one's a mid, one's a late, and another plus on top of that. So you got to go buy these guys if you have conviction on them before it's too late, because then the price just gets out of hand.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody is, like we said, you can have your value where the perceived value is dropped below the projected value, like he says, but it's all about conviction at this point. Do you believe in the player? Do you think they're going to go up, or do you think they're going to regress some? Like we talked about with Drake London earlier, you guys are willing to buy that. I think he may have hit his ceiling there. So to me, that's where we're deciding, all right, here's the guys that I'm willing to sell or go buy or do whatever. It's just all a big mind game and kind of how you project out for people. But you're absolutely right. I mean, anytime the price is right, you're going to buy it, obviously.
Yeah.
When I know a guy who has Mike Evans in a dynasty rebuild, and he's getting some offers for Mike Evans. And the question becomes, what do I do with this guy? I'm sitting here with Mike Evans, who's a premium wide receiver right now, but has a shelf life of another year or 2 at the most, right? Do you hang on to Mike Evans and hope he has a really good week 1 or week 2? Then you can move him for even more to a contender. Or do you roll the dice and heaven forbid, something happens to him in week 1 and he gets injured, and now you're stuck with absolutely nothing for Mike Evans? So all those things have to be factored in. How good's your team? All those little things are super important.
And just because I know the context of what you're talking about, Coach, with that team, is the other thing you have to consider too is, like you said, what's the stage of your team? If you are rebuilding and you're in a true rebuild, that's something you have to weigh of, is Mike Evans at the best possible opportunity for me to sell right now? You got the news of Chris Godwin's not necessarily ready. People are already fading at Buka. Baker Mayfield's the biggest benefactor of all of this. So can you sell Mike Evans and get, 2 seconds? Or do you wait? And like Coach said, if he has a good week 1, let's say he has 100 yards and 2 touchdowns in opening week, there's someone out there that will probably pay a first for him if they're a competing team. So that's kind of the risk you run. So certainly you're right, Rice, where you have to see their perceived value versus their projected value. But that's part of the game in Dynasty. You got to constantly be evaluating it. And eventually you got to take risks. Like Coach, Tyler, they all know that there's times where I'll get over aggressive. If I like somewhere and I want something, I will go and make the move and I will pay for it. But that's kind of how I play the game. So you got to be ready to do that. But we've got a question here from Chuck, guys. He is on the clock, so this is important. Nerves. He said he needs a running back at the 109. Harvey and Caleb are available. Offer pending for Chase Brown. Pause on his 5th-round capital. Wide receivers are JJ, Marvin Harrison Jr., DJ Moore, and Pickens. Any concerns about the noise around DJ? Should I look to move? So I think the 3 of us collectively would probably all agree to sell DJ Moore. I think we did a video last week, maybe the week before. I can't remember if Coach was involved, but I believe we all said sell DJ Moore. So that's someone I would be looking to move. If I'm up at the 109, would I take Harvey or Caleb needing a running back? Let's start there, guys. I think that's the biggest question mark. For me, that's tough. Coach is going to roast me because I took Caleb Johnson at the 108 in a league, and I hated every second of it. But there are some circumstances that required me to do that.
Trade up.
That's true. I traded up for next to nothing, though. I gave away the 311, so it was nothing. And there were
Was
some
it,
RB
though?
needy teams.
Was it?
Yeah, maybe. True. We'll see. We'll let you know in 2 years. If you need a running back, like, I get that. I understand your concern. I mean, would I move the 109 for Chase Brown? Probably. And that's crazy for me to say. I'm a pretty notorious Chase Brown hater, but I think I would do it.
Well, you know who might actually be worse at pass protection than Chase Brown?
Who's that?
RJ Harvey. I'm serious.
It's not,
Like he
yeah.
had like he was one of the absolute worst pass protectors in all of college football last year. It was like bottom 200 in grade wise in pass pro. That being said, I like Harvey and his opportunity to catch balls out of the backfield, his explosiveness. I do like Harvey there. Caleb Johnson at 109 is gross. Like, it kind of makes me throw up in my mouth a little bit, to be honest. I like Chase Brown. Chase Brown's safe to me at 109. It's hard for me to say that too, but yeah.
Yeah. And sitting at the 109, you assume that his team is competing. If that's his true pick, then he probably performed well and was in the playoffs. So Chase Brown is going to be stable production for sure this year. Now, this will fold into our next buy sell that we're going to talk about. But Tyler, what's your thoughts on this? Would you stick and pick? Would you take one of these guys, or would you be looking to go after a guy like Chase Brown?
For me, I would probably I'd probably stick and pick here. I'd probably take Harvey. I mean, I know we've talked about it before. We're all big fans of Sean Payton, and we think he knows the game of football pretty well. And he went out of his way to go get RJ Harvey with other guys on the board. So I would take Harvey here. I think Sean Payton sees something in this guy. Whether or not he can pass block, that's a whole nother story. But I think he sees possible upside here for RJ Harvey. So I would take that. I think it did surprise me quite a bit that Matt said, buy Chase Brown. It is stable production, but we're gonna get into why I think that was a surprise here in a few. I'm not really. I had Chase Brown last year on a team. He did well for me, but at the same time, I'm trying to sell him or at least get the guy we're getting ready to talk about. So kind of as a handcuff deal. So for me, I would probably I'd pick Harvey, but I could see why you would want to move for Chase Brown, who's somewhat stable.
I think he just adds immediate production. Now, granted, we don't know your running back room, so that certainly could change my opinion. But Coach, I'm going to question you now. Let's say that the deal is off the table. He can't get Chase Brown. He's stuck on the clock at the 109. What would be your pick? Would you pick Harvey or Caleb, or would you look elsewhere? Would you go after one of the tight ends if they happen to fall? Or
I know people don't love this, but if I really had to have a running back and I thought my team was contending, then I would take RJ Harvey. Like, I would take Harvey over Caleb, in my opinion. If I needed both positions, let's say, then and both tight ends were available, then I would choose a tight end over either one of these two. But
yeah,
if I'm picking a back, I'm taking Harvey over Caleb.
Because we have to remember, it's only May, so there's plenty of time for you to figure out your roster. A lot of people are going to draft for need. Rarely do I draft for need. I only do that if I think my team is competing or I'm kind of in a peculiar spot where I think I need to do it. For the most part, I'll take the best player available and I'll close my eyes. Like, I'm in the league with Coach. I have the 101, the 102, and I need running backs. I have full intentions of not taking a second running back. That's my plan. I have full intentions. So if Byrne is listening, you've been warned. And Pete, go mediate that deal for me. But let's jump to our next question, guys, from Spock. He's got a trade inbox question for us. So bear with us. We're going to post all three on here. So he's sending his 26th first, projected to be mid, and a 26th third for Goff. He's not interested in mine since it'll be late. My format juices are tight end. So on bye weeks, I've been putting tight end in my super flex spot. I don't think that I can move Goff in my league. So if I make this move, he'd just be my third quarterback. Any help would be appreciated. Just to add to team context, guys, it's a 12-team Superflex PPR, tight end premium, start 10, and then he's got Lamar. Oh, my gosh, this team is awesome. Lamar,
Mhm.
Jaden Daniels, Gibbs, Saquon, Kamara, Aaron Jones, CD,
Good
Amon
Lord.
Ra. Yeah, dude. I don't know what you need. Do you need anything? This is insane. This is a heck of a team. He's a
No
back-to-back
way you
champ.
lose
I know,
this league, right? I guarantee he's back-to-back champ. Woo!
Yeah. Yeah.
so he asked the question, guys. Do I even need Goff? I mean, I'll start.
No.
I think I'm. Go ahead, Coach.
I'm not being I'm just saying, like, your team is in a fantastic position right now. The more you hold on to these first, the better equipped you'll be to continue the run that you've got going. Like, I wouldn't be in a hurry to move a first for Goff right now.
Especially given that quarterback room. I mean, Lamar and Jaden Daniels is mine. I would love to know the history of this team and how it was built. So well done to you. I can't remember, Coach. Do you remember the name of the guy who had those crazy teams last year? I can't remember his name, but
No.
it reminds me of that situation. I'm with Coach. I probably would keep my picks. I mean, the 26th class, what's it going to be? We'll have to see. A lot of people think the quarterback class next year is going to be really good. So if you have multiple firsts next year, then hold on to them. You might be able to solve the third quarterback issue. If you do pick up Goff, when would you play him? You're not going to play him over Daniels, and you're not going to play him over Lamar unless there's something wrong that happens. And if that is the case, then by all means, take those first and go buy a quarterback. You might have to pay a little bit more, but I think you can get it done. Given that it's only 12 team, it's not a 14 team where, quarterbacks start to get really scarce on a lot of rosters. So I think you're in a really good position, man. He built this team through blood, sweat, and tears. I love that, man.
Good for you, bro.
Yeah.
I do have one question. I see he says I'd be sending one of my 26 first projected mid. I guess he has someone else's because his is not projected mid. His is projected to 112.
Yeah. He's got 2 firsts in 26.
Good for you, man. I'm telling you, like, hold on to those. Like, you're the man. Like, I'm envious of your team.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, I'll say this, and everybody isn't in this camp, but I tend to be. If I have to move a bunch of pieces to try to go get a third quarterback, like, I would be moving basically nothing to try to get the backup for those two guys. You know what I mean?
And they're probably on waivers.
Yeah, probably. Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably. But some of these deep leagues, they have them sitting there. Like, I would have those added onto my roster just in case something tragic happened.
And the other thing you might do too, and Coach, you've kind of been mentioning this in several leagues that we've talked about, is this one of those situations where you might go, I'm going to go check on the Geno Smith owner, kind of see where they're at. It's not necessarily the sexiest pick, but I think it's one that you can get pretty cheap right now. And you could probably send like a second next year and, maybe a third the year after that or something like that, and get a third quarterback so you have that flexibility for bye weeks or possible injury stints, whatever it might be, but also maintaining those first, because I hate moving those first unless I have to.
Yep.
I'm gonna take a page out of mine and Coach's conversation from before the stream started. If you really need a third quarterback, go get Geno. We've talked about it. He's cheap. Go get it. He could be a great third quarterback just to play in case of an injury or something like that, or a bye week. He's fine. Like, just go pay a second for Geno, or a second and a third, like we said, and then there you go. You've solved your quarterback issue at that point. Now, I do agree with what Matt said earlier. You don't need to pay for Goff right now because you still have the 2 firsts. Worst comes to worst, those firsts are yours is going to be the 112 most likely. That other first could stay right in the middle, or that team may have tragic injuries and it may accrue in value. It may go towards the early side. So if all else fails and you really came down to a dire situation, you could always go take the 2 first and try to buy somebody ahead of Goff, that could even help your team there.
Well, he adds one more question, guys. Let's hit this, and we'll hit our last buy sell, and then we've got a coach's question segment we're going to do. All right, so same team. He got offered Neighbors for Rice in a 26 mid first and a 26 late first. It's a start 10, so not sure if I can condense or not. Got offered Neighbors for Rice and 2 firsts.
That
yeah,
makes
I'd probably do it.
Receiver room dangerous.
I'd do it. I would do it. Like,
that is dangerous.
with this team and how good your team is, I don't care. Like, give me Neighbors because he's Dynasty wide receiver 1. You're going to have him and CD and Amon-Ra and AJ Brown. Yeah, take Rice in 2 firsts. Yeah, forget everything I just said about the 26th class. Go get Neighbors.
Yeah.
Coach.
Yeah, Neighbors is so good. Like, I'm totally the guy that would counter back with a mid first and a second instead of the late first. But yeah, I would. I'm taking that. I'm taking Neighbors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. Like, Rice is an interesting question. We've been talking about, is he going to get suspended? There's been some reports that the suits aren't necessarily set for trial. We can talk about that another day. I think it's too soon for right now. He's coming off an injury. So there's just a lot of question marks that you have to ask yourself. I don't have any question marks about Malik Neighbors. We already saw what he can do without good quarterback play. What could he do if Jackson Dart suddenly is good? Or even if Russ is stable? Like, it's Neighbors for me, and it's pretty easy. So, hey, we appreciate the subscription. Thanks, man. We're here every single Wednesday. Face-Off Crews live almost every day of the week. We've got all sorts of videos, so tune into all that. If you got a questions, comment. We are happy to come back and hit those. But let's go through our last buy, guys. And it's going to kind of pair with the Chase Brown talk we had before, and that's going to be Taj Brooks, running back from Texas Tech with the Red Raiders. Very, very productive. This is kind of an interesting buy-sell for us because this is a guy you're going to be able to draft in your rookie drafts in the 3rd round, sometimes even the 4th round. He is going to be the handcuff to Chase Brown, but in my opinion, he has the ability to get some goal line work because he's big, strong, agile enough. He can catch it out of the backfield. He's a really solid running back. Not necessarily going to blow you away with a ton of speed, but I think he's a guy that's going to have a role. And for me, he's an absolute buy. He might be my most rostered player by the end of all my drafts, so I will be sure to let everyone know. Coach, what's your thoughts on Taj Brooks?
No. I'm passing Taj Brooks back to you there, Matt. You get us started here. You have a lot of known Chase Brown opinions. Let's hear your thoughts on Taj Brooks first.
Yeah, I've been known to critique Chase Brown, despite me saying I would pay the 109 earlier for the known production. I think Chase Brown has a role. I've maintained that stance, but I do think that someone is going to eat into the workload, and Taj Brooks is absolutely the perfect person to do that. Like I mentioned before, he has the size to kind of compete at the goal line. I mean, he's 5'10", 230. Man. Yeah, he's 230, and he looks every bit of it. He can catch it out of the backfield. He can run between the tackles. He has the ability to break tackles, too. So I really like him, man. I don't know what it is, but there's just something about the tape when you put it on, and it just feels safe. It's one of those plays where it's a lot like Brian Robinson, where he's not going to blow you away with anything, but he's okay at everything. And guys like that have a role. They stick around. Yes, it's not the biggest upside. It's not the biggest ceiling. But for me, it's someone that I'm absolutely leaving every single draft I can with him at the 310, at the 311, at the 312, in the 4th round, even off waivers, man. Like, this guy is just someone who needs to be on your roster just because of what could happen.
So, oddly enough, I was reading up on Taj Brooks and trying to find something that might sway me one way or the other. And the Bengals have really went out of their way over the last few years to draft running backs that have as little mileage on their legs as possible. Guys that didn't have tons of workload. Well, Taj Brooks is as opposite of that as you can get. Like, he had tons of college carries, tons of college workload, back-to-back 1,500-yard rushing seasons. Opposite of RJ Harvey, he had a really good pass pro grade. The Bengals do not love Chase Brown's pass pro. Like, we've talked about this a lot on here. Not his grade was okay, but for whatever reason, they would take him out of the game, put in tight ends for pass pro, stuff like that they have to be hunting a replacement for that. So that alone is going to give Taj Brooks some opportunity to at least have somewhat of an impact. So, yeah, I mean, I like his size. I like his college production. I like everything about him. Now, he's not a burner or anything like that necessarily, but he's a really solid back. He's a guy I'm going to buy, and I'm going to draft late in drafts, 3rd and 4th rounds in all our Dynasty drafts if we can get him. We've been trying to do that.
Yeah, and real quick, Tyler, before you go, I think the one thing I would add too is we've already seen what Chase Brown has when he had that full workload in Cincinnati, and a lot of that had to do with some injuries that happened. They made the addition for Khalil Herbert, and it didn't work. So they were trying to find a running mate all season, and it just never happened. if something were to happen to Chase Brown, and I don't hope that, I think he's a guy that could be just like him and step into a 3-down workload, and he can sustain it. Like Coach said, he's big enough to handle it. He's good enough in pass protection to earn Joe Burrow's respect and stay in there on 3rd down or key plays. I absolutely love Taj Brooks, so I'm drafting him anywhere and everywhere I can. This is a buy that I would say you need to be understanding that it's not necessarily going to be someone that you're going to start week 1. This is a long-term play or a situational play, but it's someone I think should be rostered and should be on your team just because he's got immense value should something happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you mean to tell me that if Chase Brown goes down, that he can't beat out Samaje Perine and Zach Moss if he's there? I don't believe that at all. I think he's going to step in and be the RB2 on that team, right away. I think that's pretty easy. I'm kind of disappointed you didn't throw out your favorite stat about Taj Brooks from the rookie.
Oh, his rushing yards?
Yeah. Do you got it?
Yeah,
Do you have it handy?
I don't have it with me, but I think what it is he's one of only 2 players to rush for over 100 yards in every single game last year. The other one was Ashton Genty. He's the only player to run for, I think it's 90 yards in 22 or 23 straight games. So the guy is really, really, really productive. And I've had the privilege to watch him in person many, many times. So it's a guy that I would be buying just because I think he can sustain the workload. And again, it is a situational play. I'm not saying buy Taj Brooks to start him. I'm saying buy Taj Brooks because this is one where the value can improve and accrue something else for your team. It might be someone that I take a lot of my shares and ship him off to the Chase Brown manager should something happen, and I get something big back. Because again, we're talking about a guy you're getting either off waivers in the 4th round or the 3rd round. So you're not necessarily spending a ton of capital, and any improvement on that is something.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like the guy a lot. We have a team that we co-manage. We picked him there, and we don't have Chase Brown there. We just believe in the possible upside, especially having Joe Burrow as our quarterback there. So I think that's a guy you can easily go by. Like Matt said, you're getting him in the 3rd round, kind of in the late 3rd round, really, and into the 4th round. So just somebody to keep an eye on. You can always throw that out there, and if somebody takes him, it's a dart throw at this point. But should something happen that he hits, and his value will spike being on a productive offense like the Bengals.
Well, and I'll tell you too, there's going to be a 3rd round dynasty running back or even 4th round dynasty running back that's going to spike, that's going to hit. It happens every single year. Like if you're drafting in the 3rd round and you don't know who to take, draft a running back. I'm telling you. Every year in Dynasty, it just happens, whether it's Bucky Irving, whether it's Brian Robinson Jr. We could talk about these guys over and over and over. Like, draft you a 3rd round running back.
Tyrone Tracy is another name. Like, there's names out there that, like Coach said, we need to be taking the running backs. In this class, I'm with you. This 3rd round, I absolutely love it. I am drafting DJ Giddens, Taj Brooks, Sampson, James, I'm just trying to think of other running backs. I'm drafting them all. Like whoever falls, I'm taking the shot.
Damian Martinez,
like Woody Marks. These are all guys, like Coach said.
Rashard
one
Smith.
of them is going to hit. A lot of them will probably end up being nothing, but somewhere someone's going to hit. So I'm trying to find the shot at that because when it hits and you get a guy like Bucky Irving, it completely changes your team. So
100.
Well, Pete says Coach is dead to me tonight. Well, I'm glad you're here, Pete, because I want you to listen to this.
Man, wait a minute. I did not talk about Aaron Rodgers at all. Not even a little bit.
Well, now he's probably going to leave the stream. But we've hit all of our buy sells. So if you're still in here, be sure to like the stream, comment your questions. We'll certainly come back to those. We've got some other stuff we're going to talk about. We're going to hit a segment that we're probably going to do each week just because Coach is continuing to push these ideas, and I think they're pretty interesting. So this is Coach's question. So, Coach, you have the floor. What would you like to ask us?
All right, so I have 2 questions I'm going to pose to the both of you tonight. I'm going to start with the first one here. Okay, I want to get your thoughts. So outside of Travis Hunter, Travis Hunter is not – you cannot answer Travis Hunter. Which rookie wide receiver will have the most total catches through his first 3 seasons?
So just to kind of inform all the listeners out there, we'd be talking about Ted McMillan with the Panthers, Emeka Egbuka with the Buccaneers, Matthew Golden with the Packers, Trey Harris with the Chargers, Jack Besh with the Raiders, and am I missing anyone? Luther Burden with the Bears.
Jaden
That's
Higgins,
probably your biggest
Jaden
names.
Higgins.
Jaden Higgins, Noel, both with the Texans, and Kyle Williams with the Patriots. So Tyler, I'm going to let you answer first because Coach already knows what my side is, and I want to hear what you have to say.
I have a feeling it's probably going to be the same here. I really want to lean Egbuka. I really do, but I think this first year with Godwin and Evans still there, I think that's going to eat into that. But I think probably Matt's answer, it's definitely going to be mine, is Trey Harris. I think we've already talked about it. I think that's going to be the guy to lead the catches. I really do. I think this offense is about to take off. I 100% believe that.
So I like Trey Harris too. When Coach initially posed the question to me, it was really, really hard because I love Trey Harris and I love Matthew Golden. Those are two guys that I have been buying everywhere. The big question mark is, can Bryce produce with Ted McMillan in Carolina? But I posed the question back to Coach and said, let's just assume all these guys hit their peak and they all do what they're really, really good at the next level. The one player I don't think that would be talked about enough in this situation is Jack Besh. He steps into a role where there's not really a wide receiver for him to compete with. He's a guy that can catch a ton of balls, do that Puka Nacua-like role where he's just going to be tough as nails, short yardage, making plays. And I think he might be a sneaky play to be the guy where we walked away and you said, after 3 years, he has, 293 catches in his career. That wouldn't shock me at all. If you said that about Ted McMillan, I mean, maybe. I struggle to see the world where Golden is tougher because as much as I love him, there's a world where it goes wrong and that offense in LaFleur just kind of spreads the ball around all over the place. I love Trey Harris, but Trey Harris to me projects to be a little bit more the bigger guy stretching the field where Ladd McConkey is going to be the slot guy, getting a lot of those quick targets. But I'm with you, Tyler. It wouldn't shock me if it was Trey Harris. But Besh is the one that I just kept thinking, what if it was him?
Well, what's notable here is neither one of you said Ted McMillan, right? Neither one of you said Ted, which is concerning for Panther fans out there, I'm sure. But there's a lot of question about whether Bryce Young can get him the ball. What's that situation going to look like? Can Ted separate enough? Is he just a high ball kind of guy, which may cut down on some of his catches? I think Golden, Matt's kind of sold me on this a little bit too, but now the Green Bay situation is concerning. Is it the scheme? Is it Jordan Love? What is it that wants to spread the ball around so much? I do think they spent some capital on Golden, so they're going to use him more. I personally would take Golden here, but if I was going to take a sneaky pick, it would be Kyle Williams. If I was going to take a sneaky guy that can walk in and be wide receiver one if things go well in New England also. There's not a lot of competition there with a lot of really talented people. I know there's Diggs, right? But, I mean, there's opportunity there for Kyle Williams to have a major impact quickly, similar to Besh.
And the capital spent on Kyle Williams, I think, says a lot. I mean, let's not forget they drafted Baker last year. They drafted Polk in the second round, and they went out and again invested in the wide receiver position and got Kyle Williams. I think all three of us are pretty high on Kyle Williams. If you watch the tape, he's explosive as heck, man. If he finds his way in space, the guy is gone. It was the 40 time reflective of his true in-game speed. I don't think so personally. And that's not uncommon. I do want to, mention Pete on his stream earlier was talking about Terry McLaurin of he's not necessarily a burner. I kind of disagree with that. Kyle Williams is a lot like Terry McLaurin where their track speed, they're the 4.3 guys, but not necessarily that elite speed. But when they get on the field, they find a way to just burn people, especially in man coverage. And I think Kyle Williams has a chance to be really, really good with Drake May.
Yep. Travis Hunter found that out the hard way, right?
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Coach, you've got a second question for us, so we'll kick it back to you.
I do. All right, I've got one more. Ready? Which rookie running back will have the most receptions through his first 3 seasons? Not yards, not fantasy points, most receptions. Maybe you're in a PPR league, maybe you're in half PPR.
So just kind of recounting, we're going to have Genty with Vegas. We're going to have Judkins with the Browns, Travion Henderson with the Patriots, RJ Harvey with the Broncos, Caleb Johnson with the Steelers, and then guys like Scattaboo in New York with the Giants, and Tootin in Jacksonville. Just kind of my initial gut reaction, Tootin would be the dark horse for me, just because if he had the chance to beat out those guys, maybe Etienne gets traded to a team like the Bears, or, he steps into that workload. He's really good out of the backfield. He's explosive and fast. So he kind of fits that Bucky mold in Cohen's offense. But if I had to place money on it right now, today, I think I would go with RJ Harvey with hesitancy. That kind of feels like the safe pick because that seems like what he's really good at. I could see Peyton and Bo Nix kind of developing that relationship of just flaring him out, screens, angle routes, just being a menace in space.
Yeah, I would love to say Ashton Genty just because of like workload being the workhorse. I'm actually gonna go with Quinshon Judkins though with the Browns, especially if Flacco is gonna be the starter this year, or even Shador. I mean, we've seen it, time and time again with we critique Colorado's offense of they like the little dink and dunk. They like to manufacture things. If that's what he's really good at, you could easily see some high reception totals out of the backfield there for Quinshon Judkins, and that he was good at that in college. So for me, that's probably where I tend to lean, just based on like offensive environment as well as probably the talent.
Yeah, I like both your answers. Like I do like the Harvey answer in particular, but for me, if I was going to take a guy, I would take Travion Henderson in New England. He was a really good out of the backfield. New England likes to do a lot of that. Now that could change now. Things are changing in New England quite a bit, so it's kind of hard to say. I just really like Travion Henderson at that. And if I was going to take a dark horse guy here at this, I would take Cam Scattaboo. Cam Scattaboo was a fantastic receiver out of the backfield at Arizona State. I mean, they would split him out wide. I mean, the dude has great hands, runs really good routes. I don't remember exactly what his Pro Football Focus grade was receiving, but it was top 10 in the nation. That was impressive to me. That is something that for me, if I'm a Tyrone Tracy owner, that was what would make me a little bit nervous about Cam Scattaboo, is that he's not just this downhill thumper like everybody's making him out to be. He also can get out of the backfield and catch the ball some too.
Yeah, and that's Tracy's game too. Like that's what he's really good at. He's a former wide receiver, and like you mentioned, Scattaboo is extremely comfortable, and not only comfortable, very good at it. I mean, he is fantastic at Arizona State.
Yep.
I think
there are my two questions there for the week.
I like the coaches' questions. Those were tough. The wide receiver one really got me stumped, man. Like I spent forever going through all the scenarios of, well, what happens if Trey Harris is at his peak? How many catches would he have? What happens here or there? So I think that's a good question. Coach, your Travion Henderson pick, I think is interesting because he's the most explosive guy out of the backfield. His receiving production at Ohio State was very good overall in his career, but he didn't necessarily have a ton of catches. I mean, only 26 last year, 19 the year before, 27 his freshman year. But I think that's kind of just a product of the system of Ohio State. I mean, they're the luxury of having 18 Maseratis all over the place in their wide receiver room, just doing whatever they want. So I'm with you. He finds himself in a good situation too with Drake May. He's going to be the guy. We've seen enough of Ramondre. We've seen enough of Antonio Gibson. So he's stepping into a really, really good situation.
Well, I'll tell you what I liked about the questions is that all of us had different answers.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it's not easy, man. These answers are difficult, Yeah.
My only reservation on the Travion thing, and it's not the talent of the player. My only reservation is Drake May. Just he does have the ability to get outside of the pocket and move. I know Bo Nix does as well with RJ Harvey. But I do think Drake May is probably one of the more athletic guys out of the three that we mentioned, the quarterbacks that would be there. I brought up Quinchon just because Joe Flacco's 40. So if he's going to be the starting quarterback, you best believe he's not running anywhere. So he'll check it down all day. So I do find it interesting. I mean, I like Travion. I just think maybe the reception totals might fall off a little bit just because of Drake May's ability to get out of the pocket.
Yeah, and I was a little surprised that nobody said Genty either, right? The one thing, in college, he was not great at that per se. Like, I think his grade was somewhere in the 50s. I don't remember where it was exactly, but it was somewhere in the 50s. That being said, Geno is really good at checking down with his backs, and Geno's a very underrated quarterback in my opinion as a whole. Like, I know he's middle of the NFL, somewhere in there to 20, somewhere in there, but he's perfect for a guy that can spread it around and could get Genty the ball out of the backfield some.
Yeah, I'm with you, Coach. I think Genty is one of those wild cards in this question. Now, obviously, all three of us think he's really dang good. But how much receiving work is he going to have? I wouldn't necessarily peg him to be above these other guys. Harvey is great out of the backfield. Henderson's great out of the backfield. Judkins can certainly do it. I think he's got a little bit more thumper in him than the other two, but at the same time, he's perfectly capable. He was very good at it. Well, we got one more question, guys, from Spock, and then we'll get out of here. So unless you comment your question, we're going to wrap up here in a second. So he says, one more. I own the 1.05. He's got Genty, Ward, Hampton, and Hunter are gone off the board. Do I go with Tet or do I take Henderson? The league is very low activity, so drafting for value and trade for need is more difficult than usual. Or draft running back and skip the headache. Let's take a look at his team here. It's a 12-team Superflex PPR, 0.75 tight end premium, start 10. He's got Lamar, Kyler, Bijan, CMC, Alvin Kamara, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Puka, AJ Brown, Tyreek, DJ Moore, Rice, Andrews, and Ingram. Well, you certainly have a type. Some of these players are repeats, so I see what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
The question becomes, guys, with this team, knowing this roster and kind of the league specifics, would you take Travion Henderson or would you take Tet McMillan?
I'm taking Henderson.
Me too.
I'm jumping right on it. I'm taking Henderson. And I'll say this is why. I love Bijan. CMC and Kamara are aging, and there's a problem there. Will CMC finish the year? Kamara's getting old. You could definitely use some youth in that running back room. Love your wide receiver room. Love it. So there's that.
Yeah. I'm totally with you. Go ahead, Tyler.
I agree. You take Travion just because of the team specific, but let's not get it confused that Tet is not a good pick at 105. Like, I've seen this kind of become a more trending thing where Travion is going above Tet. I'm looking at a draft right now where that happened, and I think it's very team specific. I think he steps in, and I think he's easily the wide receiver one on the Panthers. So for your roster, I would take Travion, absolutely. But if it was any other roster where you were taking best player available at this point, I wouldn't fault you for taking T-Mac.
Well, he adds to what if Hunter drops to the 105? That's easy for me. Hunter is the 102 for me. So wherever I get him, I'm taking him. If he's on the board, you make the move. If he's falling, you try and trade up. I'm doing anything and everything I can to get Travis Hunter on my team.
Yep.
Martin adds, why do you guys hate T-Mac? Well, that's kind of a loaded question. So let's answer this for a minute because we're kind of a split group. I wish Pete was in here to give his take. Coach and I have been vocal on T-Mac. Me personally, I don't think he's a 1. I think he has a chance to be a wide receiver 2 going forward in the future. Let's step back and look. He's tied to the Panthers. He's tied with Bryce Young. Yes, he had a strong finish to the year, but are you ready to just lock in right now that he is a top 12 dynasty wide receiver? Me, absolutely not. I don't think that's the case. I think he's really good at contested catches. The separation is an issue. He's got enough speed to make big plays, but I don't think he's going to be the guy like Jamar Chase where he's going to be running across the middle. Everyone compares him to Drake London. I cannot stand that comparison. Drake London was a better prospect, and I think he's a better wide receiver right now. Like Pete says right here, or excuse me, Haas says, Pete's ears are ringing based on what I'm saying, and I have no doubt. I'm not going to hold back. I think he's a good player. I think he's going to be the one on this offense, but I don't think he's going to be a guy that's going to transcend your team and be suddenly this alpha wide receiver that carries your roster. I think he can be a solid wide receiver 2 or 3 on your fantasy team and be the wide receiver 1 for the Panthers. But let's temper our expectations right now. Coach, I'll go to you since you're kind of similar to me, and then we'll let Tyler go.
Well, Ted got a lot of hype, obviously, the last 2 years. I just really feel like there's a world where Ted is just, he's okay. He's a solid receiver, right? I think there's a world where he's, Jalen Waddle one day. That's the type of production he's given you. He could be a good player. He could be a DK type production guy. I don't think we don't hate Ted McMillan. I think he's a high ball guy. He makes really good contested catches. Doesn't separate a lot. He is big. Like 6'5" guys are not necessarily. Yeah, Spock. Appreciate you. No doubt. 6'5" guys are not. The bigger you are, it's not like. People think that production is huge because he's big. That's not necessarily a gigantic help, I guess you could say. We think he's an okay player. We think he's a good player. We just don't necessarily think there's a whole world of difference between him and Trey Harris and Golden, and that combined with the Panthers makes it kind of, scary.
Yep, totally agree. Tyler?
I'd say this is where we kind of disagree. Like, yes, I do think he's the wide receiver 1 for the Panthers easily. I don't think that's even any question. I do agree with the fact that, sure, he can be a wide receiver 2 for your team. But then again, there's not Jamar Chases and Justin Jeffersons in every draft. Sure, it seems like it because we've had, one every year for the last 3 years because you had Neighbors, you had Chase, you had JJ, you had all these guys come out. But let's also not act like that's a common thing. That's just an anomaly at this point. So for me, I'm taking the guy that has the opportunity. Sure, is the offense a little, because we don't really know what Bryce is. We don't know what the Panthers are as have the opportunity there. So if anything, I'm taking opportunity. I'm taking target share, and he is that contested catch guy. I guarantee you that if something happens and when they get down to the red zone, it's either going to be him or Adam Thielen. And I have a feeling that you're going to go for the 6'5" guy that's standing in the back corner of the end zone over Adam Thielen, who's aging out as we speak. So
if the 5'10" quarterback.
Now, hang on. Now, I just asked the question, who would have the most catches in 3 years? And you went straight to Trey Harris.
I did.
Straight to
because but the reason why is because I like the offense better. I believe I believe in the offense of the Chargers more for the next 3 years than I do the Panthers. But that doesn't mean that I don't like Ted. That's the thing. It's the offensive environment attached to the possibility. That's the reason why I say that. I think Ted could easily be like DJ Moore from several years ago, where he was serviceable as a wide receiver, and he was the wide receiver 1 for the Panthers for years. Then he got traded to the Bears, and he had a whole different environment, and he succeeded better. So I think it's very similar there.
Let's just say, if you thought Ted was a Malik Neighbors type or a Brian Thomas type, the offensive makeup wouldn't matter, right? That's the thing. I think Ted's solid. I just feel like there is a world where it could end. The year could end, and he catches 60-some balls, and he's just he was pretty good. He's okay. He's a solid receiver. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't feel like it's a lock that he's going to be a stud.
I just feel like the ceiling's capped. And that's tough to say about a guy that's 6'5", because you're absolutely right. He could score 14 touchdowns in the end zone, and I'd be like, okay, I get it. I see it. But I just don't see him making the plays in open field to be the guy that takes it to the next level. You mentioned Neighbors, Chase, and Jefferson. He's not built like those guys where he's going to just suddenly streak across the middle and split 2 defenders and score. And you go, how the heck did he just do that? I think guys like Golden and Harris can do that because they have elite speed and they have the ability to break tackles and bounce off people and just use space and have that wiggle to them. Whereas Ted's just a bigger guy. And again, that size-speed combo is the reason why he was drafted so high.
Yeah.
Hoff comes in here and he says if Tet was drafted to a different team, he's viewed so much differently. What if Tet was on the Packers? What if Tet was on Washington? I'm with you. It would change things and what we're saying, because the Panthers offense, at the end of the day, it's the Panthers offense. You're making
but the Panthers offense is going to give him, like Hoff mentions there, much more opportunity than some of these other guys if he went to other places, possibly. If Tet is really good, you're going to know it. Like, you're going to know it if he's really, really good, because they're going to get him the ball.
So I'm just curious, what would you say if Tet became like Mike Evans? How would you feel about that? Just perennial 1,000
Hall
yard
of Famer. Hall of Famer. I mean,
no.
yeah.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying scheme wise. Mike Evans is also 6'5". He's 231 pounds. Okay, so he's like 15 pounds heavier than Tet at this point. Okay, so Mike Evans is not known for being fast. He's also, until they got Baker and Tom Brady, he was not on a good offense. He just had Jameis who would chuck the ball 10 million times. So,
well, I think if the Panthers offense continues its ascension that it had at the end of the year, which I hope it does. I'm a Bears fan, but my son loves the Panthers, and I hope it does. Then Ted is going to get the ball, right?
You did.
Because if the Panthers offense is in the year what it finished as last year, and Ted is really good, then his numbers are going to be through the roof. They're going to be astronomical, right? Because they don't have anybody else. So if he is so good, right, then he's going to get all of the opportunity and would, without a doubt, be the guy that was going to catch more balls than everybody else through 3 seasons. But we didn't get. But nobody went there. None of the 3 of us went there, which means there's hesitation on Tet being a superstar.
No, there's not. There's not hesitation on the superstar debate. There's hesitation on the offense as a whole. That's the issue.
Yeah, but I do think that there's one thing we gotta mention is if we're saying that it didn't matter with Mike Evans having bad quarterback play with Jameis where he threw 30 interceptions, why does it suddenly matter with Bryce Young back there? I think it goes back a little bit to the hesitation that Coach is mentioning, because again, that's been my issue. I've been vocal about it. I'm hesitant to say that he can be a 1 for the offense. I will say Mike Evans is a Hall of Famer of fantasy, Hall of Fame wide receiver play. Golly, we could debate that for a day and a half, because I've got some takes on that, because there's a lot of seasons, man, with over 1,000 yards by 1, 2, or 3 yards, and that drives me crazy. But let's hit some of these other stuff really quick, guys. Again, we want to say thanks to Spock for the super chat. He added, "Why I love your guys' content. You guys take time to understand the format and the league economy. That stuff matters." Yeah, man, that's what we're doing. So you let us know all the information. We will give you our thoughts. We appreciate the super chat. We appreciate you being in here. Be sure to catch us every single Wednesday. Chris has a question for us, guys. 12-team Superflex, 0.5 PPR, 0.5 tight end premium. He's got McCarthy, Geno, and Rodgers. He's got Kamara, Connor, and King Henry. For his wide receivers, he's got Jettas. I assume that means Puka. Yeah. Marvin Harrison, Ridley, Moore. He's got Bauer, Strange, Gadsden, a 26 second and a 27 first. Which direction should I go? Contend or rebuild? This is a team that's really in between, man. You've got some wide receiver depth with 3 big time players. McCarthy, Geno, Rodgers. That's a scary scary quarterback room. Kamara, Connor, Henry. You need some age rebuild there for sure. Bowers at tight end. Man, this team is really in the middle. I'm concerned since you said you had Gadsden, I assume your rookie draft is over, so it's not anything we can get there. We're just looking towards the future. Immediately, my mind goes to, can you tear off Marvin Harrison? Can you tear off Puka and go get something to help your team? Maybe you do something like Puka for – actually, I'm going to start with Marvin because I don't want to move Puka. I think you'd go somewhere like Marv for Roma Dunze in a first. Is that crazy? Marv for Flowers and a running back. Like, I think that's probably the move I would go, because it's good enough to win this year. And if you got money on the line, then go win the money. But the running backs, those are ticking time bombs.
Well, the lack of draft picks is major concern too, right? I mean, it's really difficult to get into this rebuild when you only have 1 second there.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, McCarthy, you got to feel good about. Gino, I mean, you can only get so much for him. Rodgers is pretty much useless until he at least signs on a team. Pete. Yeah, I'm with Matt. Like, you're going to have to look to tear down somewhere and maybe accrue a second during the tear down somehow. You got to get some draft picks, to make this team consistent, I guess you could say.
I didn't see more there. I'd move more. See if you can find a tight end needy team. You can move Strange. You've got Bowers. Yeah, I'd get a little bit scary if something happened. But, I mean, this team is one bad thing away from being nothing, to be honest. I mean, the wide receivers are great, but the quarterback play is going to be shaky. The running back room is going to be scary, and your tight end room is just simply Bowers.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a rebuild. You might have to wait till the season starts until those guys like Kamara and Connor and, hey, Ev's in here.
What's up, Ev?
With the Wemby jersey on, t-shirt jersey. Let's go.
He says McMillan's gonna be the real deal, right? He likes Xavier Legette too. He thinks Xavier Legette's the guy.
Which that goes to our next comment. We'll let Tyler finish up, and then we'll go to this last comment and get out of here.
So I think you have to wait till the start of the year, whenever Kamara and Connor and Henry and all those guys accrue value. People are contending; they still want those guys. And then I think at that point you're trying to sell them for their increased value. I don't necessarily think you're getting firsts off of those guys, but if you do get late firsts, you're only adding to your rebuild opportunity. I tend to try to hold wide receivers, and if Bowers, I wouldn't touch Bowers. I would leave Bowers and not even think about moving him. So, I think if anything, like Matt said, you move DJ Moore, maybe Marv if people are high on him. I really like Marv, but you could still get something out of it for him. I would keep JJ and Puka as well. So that's where you kind of get in this little weird scenario. But first thing I would do is probably sell your running backs once the season starts. Try to get still production, like maybe like a Brian Robinson, like we talked earlier, in a second or something like that, if you can, just to where you still have people to fill your roster and give you some points, but you're also building the draft capital for the future. So just, try it that way.
And one thing to note, Chris, is go on your waivers and pick up every rookie running back you see. You need them all because you need to see if one hits. Whether it's Jacory or Banungai or whoever it's going to be, try and go get some of those guys just to see if someone can be the saving grace for this roster. Chuck Coach says Tet is going to go get all the production opportunities he can handle with his projected volume, but we're going to know pretty early if he's like Legette and he's not him. Coach and I had this same discussion earlier today. I'm totally with you there, Chuck. We're going to learn pretty quick because, in my opinion, Legette is not it. But I think Coach is saying that there might be something more to Legette. We'll have to see.
Well, possibly.
Thanks, Chris.
Right. Also, Jalen Coker. Jalen Coker's a threat there too. I mean, as far as he's probably better than Legette, really, or at least looked better than Legette last year down the stretch.
Last one, real quick.
What do you think about Legette?
I think he's pretty good. For me.
He's pretty good. Yeah, Legette, he's got another year, right? I mean, it's only been 1 year. We'll see what happens. But our last one before we get out of here, Curtis Murray says 14 team, 0.5 PPR, 0.25 tight end premium, start 10. He just traded away DK and he got back Laporta. Thoughts? Smash win, brother. Well done. I think that's the move. I think Coach would say that's the move too. All three of us are kind of fading DK. Yes, he's now going to be the sole guy there, but for the most part, he doesn't have a quarterback, and that's a problem. And he hasn't necessarily produced a major fantasy season since 2020. Laporta, young tight end, attached to a good offense. Love it.
Yep, 100%.
But I think that's going to do it for us, guys. We are here next Wednesday, so be sure to catch us. If you got some questions, comment. We'll come back and answer those. If you're on the clock, let us know. Follow us on X at the FF Meteors. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the Face Off Sports Network, and